Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good. Cheers as always. I'm enjoying my tea. If you haven't seen my previous video, check it out. I did one session with Andreas. It was pretty good. You could see the transformation that happened. You could see how he discovered the faculty of consciousness that is capable of handling the deeply rooted disorder or that incoherence, and now he has a tool to deal with that separate self, the separate me, the ego tantrum, if you will, out of which all the negativity stems from. And so when you approach life like that, and that becomes your priority, is to make sure that there's no separation there between the attention and awareness, you're always in the world of spirit, into this peaceful bliss. And then you're learning to play the game through harmonization. If this is calibration, we touch a little bit on the harmonization in that video as well. We played a little bit with sensations and feelings and connecting them and creating states like music with your energy. Okay? And I think that's kind of enough at that level. But of course, then you go into the mind, in your imagination, probably the first time in the right way, because up to that point, the imagination was used differently through force and not through coherence. Okay, anyway. So, yeah, definitely check it out if you like it, and if you're thinking of doing it, don't delay, do it. As you can see, it's a skill that you can learn. I can show that skill by being an example, because does that make sense? I wasn't telling him what to do. I was doing this myself, and I was feeling everything, and this way I was be able to communicate, to direct his consciousness based on whatever I'm doing, so he could see how it all works. There's a lot of more interesting things there that is much deeper, but it's beyond the scope of this video. But in this video, I want to say something. You may say, okay, that's great, that's fantastic. You discover this attention awareness, you alchemize things, you go deep enough to that hidden disorder that is hidden there, right? That you normally don't even want to see or watch, or you're afraid to look there. This allows you to go there to the root cause of all the disorder in your life, and you start dissolving it, which is the alchemical process. And then there's like 4 types of general distortions that you have to find the specific type of point between your attention and awareness for that resolution to take place. So that becomes this calibration game. Okay, now it is challenging enough to do that, to remain on your golden throne, as I call it, which is not having the ego come back online. Okay, now you may say, I'm doing all that, but that motherfucker comes back online again. Why does it happen? And then I have to do the same thing that I've just done. Okay, and I'll tell you what happened, why it happens. So one of the reasons why it happens is that you may join the train of the matrix again, and that is by aiming or looking forward, or actually, I shouldn't say aiming, looking forward, which is true, but also having a hedonistic pleasure release, and that's primarily is about sex. It's primarily having that sexual release, this traditional animalistic sexual release, that will take you out of your golden throne. I know what I'm saying, that may be quite severe is like, what do you mean? Like now I can't even have the sexual release? Um, uh, yes, if you want to remain on the golden throne, you cannot. At this point, you cannot. I'll say something more about this, and then it will make sense. That sex has its right place, but it has to have its right place. Okay. At this particular time, if you have any kind of sexual release like that, it will take you out of your golden throne, and then you're gonna have to alchemize the same things that you've alchemized already, because it took you out of it. This thing is incompatible, right? You either having those energies reuniting at the core and streaming out already, into duality from non-duality, or you are in duality and trying to accomplish non-duality through external means, and that is temporary release of pleasure. Okay, there's just two modes of being. They are not compatible. There's a lot of things that I did not like how some people were saying that it is possible to sort of live in both directions. It is not possible. I could not see this to be true. The one layer of your life, which is physical, functions like that, and that's fine. And you see, but for now, I'm not talking about this. Okay, I'm not talking about this for now. What I'm saying here is I'm not denying that the external and physical layer does function like that. That it also, like, if you want to eat something, you got to sustain your body. You got to move. You got to do all these things, the physical things that are necessary to do for your physical body to be happy and healthy. But we're talking about the heart right now. And right now, if you jump on that train, it's so vile. Because look, I gotta say something. Why am I making these videos, and why am I, growing my tribe, so to speak, and doing all this? No, partially because it's just, comes naturally, but also because it's becoming so difficult to be like a healthy, sane human being within the matrix. It is giving you no chance, right? This is why it feels horrible to be part of it, and it makes you to depend on these matrix vices to feel normal. You understand where we're at right now? That's what matrix like. It wasn't like 10 years ago. It wasn't like 20 years ago. If you watched porn 20 years ago and and masturbated once in a while, yeah, that obviously not an ideal thing. You're still part of the matrix, whatever. But it wasn't putting you on agony. You know what I'm trying to say? Now, if you engage in that world just a little bit, the crash is going to be so fucking severe that you're going to be in agony, alchemizing everything from the beginning. Okay? So, what's it like to live a life when sex is no longer a motivating factor or sexual release? Okay? And so that will allow you to remain on your golden throne, be sociable, connect with people on a different level without any kind of intention or a motive to have sex. Okay? And there's a lot of co-creation, collaboration, and enjoyment there through the heart. The energy exchange still is important because we're just souls. We need that energy exchange. But it happens on the heart level, and nothing sexual, but it's deeply enjoyable. This is why you still socialize with people. This is why you still hang out. This is why you joke around, and and have a good time and whatnot because of the energy exchange. Um, Also, if you are alchemizing energies, and if somebody is kind of more like, let's say, lust oriented, uh, if you alchemize that energy, it's mutual. It's good for you and it's good for them. They're gonna be less lust oriented, and so on. And if somebody's more wrath oriented, they're gonna be less wrath oriented, and so on. And you're gonna have a how to say, well, you're going to have what you have, using growing your flowers in the manure, and changing that manure into coherence, right? That's just part of it. Like at this point, you've already figured out that there's only like one ego, and that it's not yours, it's not others, it's just only one ego. At this point, must be obvious to you, okay? Now, okay, it may be difficult to accept this thing, not to have sex or sexual release as a motivating mechanism, but that's what takes you out of the golden throne. Okay? Another thing that can take you out of golden throne is if you are intoxicated in some way, high or drunk, and then you lose your attention, and then you go to sleep. Your throne is unattended. You're gonna wake up being pushed off of it, and then you're gonna have to go back on it again. So it is best not to leave these vulnerabilities there at this particular time. The matrix is squeezing itself. You can see that the level of degeneration is crazy. The people are totally vampires or totally zombies. They're not people. You understand? There are entities there. I don't want to mention names, but that's what's popular there. There are entities. You gotta watch them. That there is no soul there. Soul is somewhere hiding, but there are just complete and total entities that taken over these people. This is why you shouldn't belong to the matrix in any degree, shape, or form. Speaking in your heart. Now, so the end game is no longer that hedonistic pleasure release. Then there's going to be that energy is going to have to go somewhere, and that's going to have to go through your alchemy and theurgy and into the enjoyment. And that enjoyment is not temporary. The enjoyment is lasting. And that's what you get in return. Now, through that enjoyment, whatever you do in your life, because you move through the heart, the decisions are going to be made beautiful and right and graceful. Okay? You have no motivation anymore for to have that hedonistic pleasure release or sex or anything. You don't have motivation about that. It does not mean that you are, like asexual or whatever. It's actually the opposite. You become very strongly masculinely polarized or very strongly, femininely polarized. But that energy remains in your heart, and there is an exchange of that energy within the heart between you and another person. And that's what the platonic love is. Okay? Now you can actually have real relationships that are not based on sex. Freud said that, everything is in the matrix is about sex, and libido is the only driving force. He was right, but I don't think he actually saw that that's just the truth in the matrix. Because when people live in the matrix, they think that that's the way the life is. But now people are gonna start seeing that, like, oh, wait a second, this thing is degrading to the point where that can't be the way, we ought to live. And so people are gonna be looking for the way out. And like I said, the way out is that faculty, that fourth faculty of consciousness that has to be learned first. And it's super, super easy with somebody who's already, using that faculty. It's very easy. But it works one-on-one sessions for some reason. And because there's a direct attention. There's something going on at the energy level, and that's why it works. And whenever I work with people like this, it works. Everybody's different, but that faculty are the same for everybody. We can arrive in different ways, but it's the same in the end. Okay? So what am I saying here? Am I saying that no more nookie nookie tonight? Well, there's this, Witcher archetype, and then there's Aragorn archetype. And there are archetypes, and you can live them at some point in your life, You can get to the Witcher archetype. But then comes a time when you can't do that anymore. And because it's just too costly. And I think this is the time right now. I think that before slipping into the matrix a little bit did not have that strong of a gravity, so you could go back on your golden throne quite easily. I think now this is closing. I think it's going to, it's like either this or that. And I think it's partially because of the time. I think it is splitting the realities, as people call it, and some are just going to remain in the matrix, and some are going to move into the holistics. And that's that. And so now I'm seeing this is that what's the motivational mechanism, this hedonistic pleasure, sexual release. Another thing, another hedonistic pleasure is to get intoxicated, and then go into the slumber. Don't go into the slumber. That's another trap. That's still matrix. That's still a hedonistic release for pleasure. When you stop seeking that, then the entire motivational mechanism starts changing. There is motion there still, but it's not the same motion. It's not seeking motion, but it's expressive motion. You are moving from non-duality into duality, which is your expression of the soul, rather than being in duality at the heart and trying to accomplish non-duality through the mind or external, right? That's all the false God, false light. This is where all the religions are trapped in. This is like all the people who believe in Jesus, believe in God. This is the matrix thing. It's a world of beliefs. It's a world of fantasy. It's an illusion. It's not real. Okay? And it appears that on this planet we have these virtual chats kind of thing, right? And so there might be a group of people that functioning in a more or less like holistic way, or maybe 100% holistic, I think right now, as I'm saying, that you can't choose anymore in between. There's no in between. I think electromagnetically it's not even possible. You see? So that's where we're at. Now, sex is after marriage. This is what Jesus said, right? And when you live through the heart, you're not going to connect with anybody in the wrong way. It's always going to be right way. And if you're there for one particular reason, to exchange the energies, and for chemical, theological reasons, or for co-creative reasons and whatnot, then that's what's going to be there. If it's like the opposite gender, and you would make it about sex before, it would not be made about sex. Okay? But there's still a lot of enjoyment there. No, I shouldn't even say still, because that enjoyment is more valuable than that hedonistic pleasure, release kind of thing. Okay? Because that's how it functions. You understand? Like if you have that disorder at the heart, you're gonna be looking for that way out. Or if you're just gonna do that, then that disorder is gonna come. Right? So if you're gonna sexual release, that disorder is gonna come. And honestly, in my life, it got to the point that it's not worth it. Like I'm deriving much more enjoyment from living a life, directly as much as possible, than having that sexual release. I was surprised, but lately I was like, what the fuck was that? That it's a habit. There's nothing there. You see what I'm trying to say? There's no reason for it to do it. But if I do it, then that reason arises. So I'm not, obviously, I'm watching myself, right? I'm not listening to anybody saying like, oh, you should not do this. Is like, I saw how it happened before and how it's happening now, and I'm not going that way at all. Okay? So all of this sexuality, I suppose, it turns into sensuality. The same energy that was sexual, because seeking for that resolution, is no longer seeking for that resolution because it's already united. So it doesn't need to seek it. And because it's united, that thing that you've been looking for is already with you, which is feeling amazing. And then as you create something, you play with that energy. Okay? And even as I'm talking to you, I feel that separation arising. At the same time, I'm placing my attention there. I'm focusing on the background. As I'm talking to you, I'm doing all of those things that I'm ought to be doing. Because what I'm saying here is ending something that is very deeply rooted. Again, it is just one of the sides of the same thing that keeps on coming back up, right? But it's limited. If you win all the battles, it will not come back online for you anymore. Okay? Now, if you live your life that is not sex-oriented, and you're not looking for that sexual release, and you don't need to, then it changes changes. Then it's about the enjoyment. Doing things because you're enjoying this, Because there's already joy, and for joy cannot just stay being joy, it must go into the enjoyment, and so that you find the activity that you enjoy. Now, again, it's not that you become like asexual. This is not celibacy. You are very, very sensitive to those energies, but that energy exchange happens at the heart level, not physical. Because it would happen physically, then you're seeking some sort of a release again. But you're not seeking any kind of release, because just in that sensual energy, that's enough. Not that it's enough. It is the enjoyment is continuous, and so if you spread the same quality of experience over time, as opposed to having all released like in one, even that quality of experience over time is still better than that thing that happened momentarily, and then there was a crash. Okay? Now, the reason I'm saying this is because we have to stabilize ourselves in this mode of being, where there's joy, enjoyment. It is not that there's like disorder, seeking of resolution. We have to accustom ourselves to this way of being, right? We have to accustom ourselves to this way of being. Our brain is going to be rewired, right? It is being rewired when you live like that. You want to be accustomed to this holistic way of being. And when you're living your life that 1 year cycle, for example, and it was never about like sexual release, then I think you can say to yourself that like, okay, now you're at least wired appropriately for this holistic way of life, where you are deriving all this enjoyment from life that is not about sex, and it's not about the libido either. You're still connecting with people that are the opposite gender, and you're exchanging that energy, the masculine and feminine energy, at the heart level and through the platonic love. And that's the base of your tribe. I think then, only then, through this way, when you're no longer sexually motivated, when you love motivated, then because as you connect with the people, like I said, like already what kind of connection is there, and there's no, don't have to make anything other than what it is. So you may have a lot of friends that are opposite gender, like genuine friends, and not the friends that like, well, they're kind of friends, but like if there's a chance to like get some nookie or whatever. No, genuine friends that the value of a friendship is that energy exchange, but not sexual release. Okay. Then if you connect with somebody that is, like I said, like your heart will always know that it is your partner, and you already know it's a partner. You don't believe it's your partner, or like not playing all these fantasy games, twin flame and whatever, but it is there already. Then it is there when you're already. And I think the system works in a way that it gives you time where you have to stabilize first, right? You're not gonna meet your partner until you stabilize, because otherwise you won't be able to handle it. If I'm trying to say, if you don't have that stability, because you cannot have that type of love if you still moving through the libido way. And if there is a chance for you to slip, even, you're not ready. You gotta be completely rooted in your golden throne, completely and totally, and that work has to be finished. And you cannot finish it without you stopping this seeking, which is sexual release. Like having completely and totally honest, like if you close a lot of these loops until some of them left. Like for example, in my life, this was left, even though for a long time I did not slip up. But when I did slip up, I was like, there was a complete and total realization of what happened. I was like, oh, I can't do that anymore, and the same thing with being intoxicated and going to sleep. And because then I wake up, exact same thing, I have to start off from scratch again. So okay, those things need to be closed off, because right now something else is a more important, you see. And I'm not going to take a risk right now, before it's solidified, before it's stable, to crash it again. It's just not worth it. All this work, all this, going through it, and then you crash. So no more. Little by little, you say no to the matrix. And little by little, you rely upon alternative source of energy. And that's how you exit the matrix. For real. Not just believe that you did. And I think everybody that get sort of like initiated into this, I suppose, like when you start learning of how to calibrate your own consciousness at the deeply rooted level, I think everybody goes through this opportunity to be able to calibrate every single possible permutation of that disorder. And there's going to be tests there for every single possible permutation, right? So this is how you end up having a conclusion, which I did, and of course I can see this now, that the intensity of the matrix right now, and it is super unforgiving. The stream of matrix is so strong that you don't want to enter it at all. Which means don't bother about any kind of hedonistic pleasure release. Yeah, that's what I would say. What else? That's it. I think that's what I wanted to say. If you've been settling back over and over again, it's might be because of those reasons, And you're not avoiding it. This is not a celibacy. You understand? Like you are socializing with people, you're meeting people, but everything you work through the energies through the heart, through the heart of the heart. If the energy is trying to go down into your pants, you put it back into the heart, and exchange that energy through the heart. Everything has to go through the heart first. But you're living your life, and the last temptation comes along, you alchemize that energy, move that energy through the heart, exchange that energy through the heart. Some taunting to wrath games or whatever, again, through the heart, until it's stable, completely stable in any kind of scenario. And whenever there's no way for you to go back, like on an energy level, not that it's not even your choice anymore. When it's no way for you to go back because you stabilize so much, then something interesting may start happening in your life, which I don't want to start predicting it. I just know that stabilization of that Philosopher's Stone is the most important thing. That's what I know. The most important thing. Yeah, of course, these things like you got to survive, you got to make money, you got to do all these things, exercise, whatever you want to do, sure, that thing. But that's just, all of that does not worth a candle without the Philosopher's Stone. And I've been dealing with this for quite some time, and I made some videos, and I looked for like the ways out and all that stuff. But at this point, in time and what's going on with the time fractals and the era that we're in and what's it like in the Matrix, guys, I mean, the Matrix is no longer like how it used to be, that like some guy once in a while, you know, if I can, you know, like get rejected by the girl, at least you can watch porn or whatever, right? This is not like that anymore. That world is so toxic and so vile, you know, and people like you know, I don't know, I didn't even know what the fuck that even means, but like this word gooning, now it's a thing, and it's just a complete degeneracy. It's complete vampirism, you know, and zombieism, and that's the relationship that people have between, you know, somebody's just complete fucking zombie and complete fucking vampire, that they want that type of pleasure non-stop. That's like ultimate degeneracy, you know. Whereas you can't have that non-stop. If you try to do that, like, you are basically the most evil person that you can be. I think the most evil person is that person that seeks that sexual release in the most degenerative way. That's the most evil person. They seek God through perversion, abomination. Okay? And that's it. That world is completely evil. It is not how it used to be. So don't go there anymore. Don't fucking go there. Don't step, you know, really. That's what I'm saying. Because if you do, you gotta observe yourself. If you do, watch how much more horrible you end up feeling. You know? And if you're alchemizing, you can see that, like, you may be like full of light one day, and then you fapped, and then the next day you're like, what the fuck happened? This is, you know, now everything's crashed again. So yeah, you see, it's not compatible. You cannot have Philosopher's Stone and have those perverted, you know, things happening there at the same time. Yeah, it's just not gonna work. And some people cope in a different way. They still remain there, and they don't want that to be part of them, so they use humor, and so they, you know, make a parody out of this. So at least they have like some cope that, you know, there's a place in the Matrix where they could be kind of quote unquote safe, and that's humor as the Matrix clown, you know. Yes, you are showing the you know, the level of degeneracy. Yes, it is ridiculous. Yes, it can be funny. But that laughter might also be hedonistic. It is a type of psychotic laughter. That's what I'm trying to say. Still not the way out. The only way out is through the eye of a needle. So then everybody's playing this, you know, Matrix archetypes. But then you say, well, are there any kind of archetypes on the holistic side? Everything is much more fluid. And you take the shape that is required of you to take. And you can be one moment, if it's necessary for you, you can be, you know, this particular state of consciousness, which sometimes people, you know, call it names and whatever. The next moment is not necessary anymore, then you can be in this particular state. And so you are moving through these archetypes, shifting shapes as it's needed by life. But you're not just stuck in one archetype, and none of these archetypes are actually dual. None of these archetypes are, you know, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, if you really look at how it all works, it's unbelievable. Like, it's a closed system. Matrix is a closed system. You will always find the same thing, and if you find one type of then you're gonna find the clown. If you find like some vampire, then you're gonna find a clown. If you find the zombie, like all these archetypes is gonna appear, and this is what you can see. Like everything you see right now. This is why on YouTube, like I don't know, man. Like, I'm super disappointed with YouTube algorithm. It's just complete degeneracy. This is what happened, and you have to look. It's like, well, this is what the algorithm created. Like I can't use the feed anymore. You understand? I have to search. I have to search. Feed is pretty much useless. Now, if I search something and then give me similar videos, then that feed is helpful. But like the default feed is fucking rancid. It's ridiculous. Anyway. So there, you want to stay in a holistic side, and you want to you grow your holistic side, the more energy from the matrix you take away. You know, that's why you don't avoid it. This is why it's not gonna be. There's no way out. There's one game. There's this matrix process that's going on, and then holistics is like outside of it. Then you can see the matrix process going on because you are no longer part of it. You are part of this big whole. You can even see it happening, and then you can see that okay, it's happening, and you can see that I need the energy that it's using for my philosopher's stone. So that's why you don't disconnect from it, but you're at this position where you just, I'm going to keep on alchemizing that. Every person that I meet and they have some degree of ego and whatnot, that's my alchemy right there. Boom, 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 boom. You turn that energy into the void, divine spark, which is a philosopher's stone and whatnot, right? The Holy Grail. That person automatically also changes. It's mutual. And that's art right now. That's where I'm at. I don't see it. I like, if I take the energy away from it, it won't be able to do the things that it's doing. That's what I know to be the fact. I cannot contribute my energy to it. So if I fab, I contribute my energy to it. I use basically the, that hedonistic pleasure. And so they immediately boost up the ego. The ego, not my ego, not other people, the ego, because that's how I experience it right now. It's the ego. So of course you don't want to do that anymore. And I would like to see more and more people like Andreas, like Landon and Ben and others to just, start living life like that through fighting for the real golden throne, and you still live life, you still live in the matrix, you know how energies works, and if somebody comes in and they have like all this ego and they try to get away with some bullshit, you know how to handle it. You handle it, you take the energy, you turn into right type of energy, you go ahead. You're still participating in life, but you don't belong to it. You're in the game but not off the game. And you know that you're collecting the energy for your philosopher's stone. If you really want to have a purpose, then that's the purpose. You see, like before, if you go out and try to socialize for the reasons of sex, now this is gone. Now you're going to socialize for the reasons of energy, calibration, harmonization, and exchange. Okay? That's where you're doing everything. And then the sex must happen as a spontaneous consequence of that without you ever even thinking about that. Because it has its place, but when you're so rooted in the heart and when you're so stable there, and if you do have sex, then it's out of love, then it's nourishing sex, not crashing type of sex, not matrix type of sex. And matrix type of sex has no value anymore for you if you on the holistic side. It never really had value. It was just an alleviation of suffering, you know. But if there was love, in so I'm not saying that there's no pockets of love in the matrix. Sometimes there are temporary pockets of love that happens, but then the matrix come in and say, okay, this is just way too much love. Let's fuck this shit up, and it fucks shit up because the couple has no understanding of how to fight for love, for the love itself, and so they split up quite easily, and one becomes vampire, another becomes zombie, right? But for the moment, people may have had this like, yeah, that was real, that was love, that was for shizzle, that was amazing, but it was just temporary because it was not tempered, it was not tested through, and that's why any kind of intent for the matrix to break you apart was successful. But it's not that people don't know what it's like to be in love with somebody, that you see what I'm trying to say. So that's my take on it, We'll see where that takes me. I mean, there's no doubt that we are in a type of spiritual war situation going on, but I don't know, like I feel pretty good in the terms of that. More and more every day I can see how things fit in a perfect way and how it all works and how to address things and not like it's totally, there is a point in life where you're not completely and totally lost, and mystery becomes an enjoyment, not something to be afraid of. Absolutely. I think that's when your life just begins. So anyway, that's my message for today, guys. Candy shop is closed until the further notice. All right, peace. See you next one.